Don.
Val.
What I want to ask you about is, having spent a lot of time on the agency side, what propelled you to go onto the client side? And can you talk a little bit about the difference between them, the
Absolutely.
two things?
Yeah, I think I'd been agency side for 20 years, and I wanted to try something new. And it was a scary proposition to leave the comforts of something I was so familiar with. And as you know, I love agency life and coming up with ideas and being part of the team that does that. But I wanted to try something new. And I think that the interesting thing about being client side is I appreciate something that I hadn't really thought about before, which is all great agencies and great agency people are close to the business and they take pride in being close to the client's business. But unless you're client side, there is at least one small degree of separation on the agency side. And so it's been fun to kind of get into it and see it from the other side. And I would not say that one is better than the other, but if I was thinking about going into marketing, I'd want to get experience on both sides because I think it makes you more well-rounded.
Yeah, and back in the day, at least when I started working, one of the things we were able to do is spend a lot of time and sometimes train at the client.
Right.
And you got to learn that, 5% of what they think about in a day is advertising when they're talking about packaging and distribution and all of these other things, right? And the products, obviously. So it was a great learning for me, but I don't think a lot of companies do that anymore.
They don't do it anymore, and I think that's an interesting point because on the agency side, the most important thing is the creative. For a purpose, you're trying to help your clients grow their business, but everybody from the creative person to the account person to the production team, everyone is all about coming up with a great idea, protecting that idea and making it great. On the client side, that's just a small piece of it. And I remember when I first showed up at DraftKings, I was all proud of this idea that we'd come up with together. And I was the most excited person in the room. And there were some people in the room that were like, that's great as long as it works. And so on the agency side, if you're all about ideas, that's a really great place to be. On the client side, that's just one piece of the puzzle, and that was an adjustment.
So I'm going to take a step backwards, though, because some of the people that I talk to have no previous experience with advertising or marketing before they go in. They go to school, they study geology, and then they land in advertising.
Right.
But you actually do have experience, right? You did journalism.
Right.
So did you do that purposely because you knew you wanted to be in advertising, or did you think you wanted to be a journalist, or how did that come about?
Well, I grew up in a house. My dad was a pretty prominent creative director in the advertising world in the 70s and 80s and was responsible for some pretty famous campaigns, and he was very confident about his ability. So growing up, watching a TV show or watching a sports game, he'd critique the commercials. Not really in a judgy way, but he just had a creative director's eye. Right. And I think through osmosis, I learned a lot about advertising that was really attractive, and I knew that I wanted to end up in advertising. But I went to a school that didn't offer an advertising program, and so I fell into journalism. And what I loved about journalism was that it's all about finding the story.
Right.
It's all about finding something interesting and compelling that a reader or a viewer would want to pay attention to. And I think there's a lot of that experience that helped me get off to a fast start in advertising when I made the switch, because I had not a cynical eye, but I didn't take everything at face value. As a journalist, you're charged with looking under the hood and around the corner. And I think that the best ideas and the best advertising is just like that. It's not presenting a product or a service at face value. It's an interesting angle and a compelling way of telling that story. So it was a pretty natural switch, and I'm so glad I did it.
Yeah, I think about the curiosity you have to be a journalist,
Right.
and the way at least I've seen you approach things, and really setting the bar high for new ideas and things that will really resonate with people that
Right.
I would say it's definitely served you well. But it's interesting as we talk to the people who watch these videos, they're still trying to figure out what to study in school, some of
Right.
them. And some of them are advertising majors but can't figure out kind of what they want to do next. And
I think our industry is great because you should come at it from a variety of angles, and in my experience, it didn't matter that I didn't major in advertising or marketing. In fact, I think it helped me that I didn't. I did have that osmosis experience growing up, so I guess I had some informal training, but the outside experience from not learning the rote way of doing it, I think helped me bring a different perspective.
No, that's great. I would agree. I didn't study it either, so it just sort of came, for me, it was about problem solving and, and critical thinking. So anyway, some resumes come across your desk. What do you tell people to look for? What do you say, you know what? you guys make sure the person can do the job, but this is the thing that's going to make the difference, the make or break that's going to make this person be successful here?
I would say two things. One is they have to love marketing, love advertising, love brands, and they have to be able to credibly talk about it. I've heard people fake it. You can smell it from a mile away, and that's the first thing that I judge very early on in the interview. The second thing I look for is they have to be able to communicate well, but in particular in writing. And it doesn't mean they have to be a novelist or a poet, but they have to be able to really communicate effectively, succinctly, persuasively. And if they can't do that, it's hard to have a great career in advertising. That's a lost art, but I think our business is one where that is really imperative.
I think it's great to hear that not only is the speaking word important, but also that people are checking for your writing skills. So, Don, you've been on the client side and on the agency side, and if you took that relationship and turned it on its head and said, what would it be on the agency side? What is it to have a great client? Which I have my own point of view about that. But then from the client side, what are the characteristics of being a great agency partner? So maybe talking a little bit about that so that the people who are interested in working on either side could know kind of what they would have to deliver to be best in class doing that.
Right. I would say the most important thing, not to be cheesy, but is respect.
Yeah.
I think that marketers on the client side are under huge pressure to solve problems and drive the business. And agencies are under huge pressure to come up with creative ideas to deliver that for their clients, but then also, on behalf of their agency, make best-in-class work that their agency can be proud of. And I think that could lead to, and sometimes does lead to, second-guessing the motives of the particular partner. But if there's a mutual respect and a spirit that you're in it together, and that you give the person on the other side of the table the benefit of the doubt that everybody's just trying to do the best they can to solve the problem the best they can, then those are the relationships that always flourish. And if there's ever a crack in that, you have to root that out or address it right away, because that chasm can widen really quickly if you're not careful.
The work we're doing with you, I'm really excited about, because you've brought us in as your business is changing, and that's really exciting to be able to work with you as you expand your vision for the company. And so we're thrilled to be doing that work with you, and I'm really happy about the relationship that we have, because we can be candid and talk to each other about the business. And so hopefully we'll inspire some young ones to come in and join us in this trip.
At the end of the day, we're doing advertising about fantasy sports. It's a lot of fun too. I appreciate everything you just said. It's mutual.
Thank you. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.